well, welcome to the first podcast of Finding Home.
Hello.
Good morning,
Hello.
everybody.
It's the evening.
Good morrow.
Good morrow.
How are you today?
What time is it, actually?
It's almost 9.
Oh my god, it's 9
Mountain
p.m.
time.
We just chilling.
Mountain Standard Time, hell yeah. Okay, cool. Well, my name's Diego. Nice to meet you guys.
My name's Nick. Nice to meet you.
Hey, my name's Seth Gorman.
My name's Annalise.
This is Finding Home. Cool. So,
Oh, it's nice to meet you guys.
You know us.
thanks.
Silly fucking goose.
Well, cool. So I guess we should just open up the floor.
Yeah.
So what is finding home to you guys?
Well, here, I guess I'll go first. Finding home to me, so thinking about when I wanted to do this podcast, when I wanted to do it with you guys, I realized we just had we have very intricate and seemingly deep conversations. I mean, for whatever our capacity is, we have very deep conversations. And I just thought our conversations would be better if shared, because I feel like we've done a lot to help heal one another in the ways that we speak to each other and the things and short adventures that we've been through and the times that we've known each other. And I just thought, if we could only share these conversations with the world and with other people, like it would make others feel not so alone, who might be alone right now in this time of the world, and just realize that like we're all kind of struggling through this and we're all trying to figure ourselves out the best way that we can. I think it's partly growing up, it's partly the situation the world's in, and none of us do anything extremely extraordinary. We aren't doctors, we don't have PhDs, we're just average people. I consider myself an average person, just doing my thing, working a job. I'm not any different than anybody else, but I think it's good to share yourself with people.
Yeah. I also think part of that is, acknowledging that we all come from very intricate, detailed backgrounds that are all very different from each other.
Right.
But just in our short lives so far, we have a lot of similarities, but we also have a lot of differences. So we choose our path, and, despite whatever background or upbringing you have, you can manage to get where you want to go. And I think that's part of finding home to me, is understanding that anyone who, wants to find home here with us can realize that they have similarities to each of us in different ways.
Right.
And realize that they can, manage to achieve their goals the way that we have, or choose to do it the opposite way, whatever they feel like best helps them.
And to whoever's listening, like, we're looking forward to you help us learn too. Like, that's why we want to have involvement. We want you to, comment on these videos, say something to us, send us an email, tell us about your story, tell us about something that you think we should talk about, that you want to talk about with us, and we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. We're always trying to learn and grow.
Yeah, agreed. So, kind of just piggybacking off both of you guys, really. For me, finding home was more so everybody grows up almost like a blank slate. They don't know where to go, if they're doing something right, if they're doing something wrong. And people really fall into, the category of music really often, and it's something that brings them joy in certain times. They connect with artists that feel the same way, and it just makes them feel not as alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically using this as a way to, how you guys said, connect with each one of us differently and truly see different perspectives and different ideas on the same topic, different topics, and find somewhere where not only is your opinion valid, but always open to be expressed, and finding somewhere where you feel comfortable enough to really call your home, because a house is a house is a house, but a home is completely different.
Yeah. A home is an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Home is somewhere, I know there's the saying, the home is where your heart is, but it's really at that space that gives you the most, how do I put it, mental clarity. Like, when you're there, you kind of feel whole.
Yeah.
When you're at that place you call home, you feel pretty put together. Like, everything sort of makes more sense, that there's a connection to you that's been missing, that you're actually back to. And no wonder people always want to stay home. Like, it's a good place to be. To leave home is a challenge. To leave home is it's a part of every hero's journey. Like you have to get up and you have to leave home and you have to go out into the world and you have to choose to do something. But it's chaotic, man. It's crazy out there.
Finding a place to come back to is always
right.
Knowing you have a place to come back to.
Yeah. And when you told me the title of this at first, I really liked it because our whole lives we're kind of finding home in a sense. I don't think we're ever found. I think it's a continuous journey that we have until we pass away or we go to another place reincarnated, and we can't do it alone. That's a big reason I like this podcast too, because like you said, we want people to fill the comments, and we want to experience life with them, because I don't personally like experiencing it alone. Yeah. I lived alone for like 6 months and it was different. I didn't completely enjoy it. I did it first, but for me, finding home is just giving others guidance and receiving guidance to continue like a beautiful life.
And I think something that's important is that like all of us we are all very like therapy and healing focused people. We're always learning however we can get therapy for ourselves or to help heal different parts of the world in whatever ways that we can. Like I think we're all healers at heart, and it's what we really want. And I think in order to become a better healer, you also have to be a good learner. Like you have to hear what other people have to say. You have to allow them to do your word, and you have to be open. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be able to share yourself in a way that you're not afraid of whatever opinions come your way. Because the community that we're trying to build is one that we can try to be open in.
And I think that's a big thing, especially for all four of us. Something, like I said, a similarity is being open-minded. Because I know personally, growing up, I was very close-minded, very firm in my beliefs. I always thought I was right. And through this whole growing process, just realizing having an open mind not only opens you to learning more things, but you open yourself to building new relationships with other people.
Right.
You know, you learn from them, they learn from you, and it's okay to admit that you were wrong. It's okay to admit after hearing from other perspectives, you're right. Like this is something that I should have kept myself open to. So I think that's also a big part of finding home, is because when you're open-minded and you let yourself accept all these different perspectives, realities, possibilities, you allow yourself to figure out who you really are, your real home is.
But that journey is utterly fucking confusing.
Oh yeah.
It is so goddamn confusing.
Yeah, it's ultimately at the end all about perspective. It's just all how you choose to see a situation. You can see the same coin and choose to see heads or tails of it, however you guys ultimately want to at the end of the day, and that either defines how you were raised or who you choose to be.
Yeah.
And you can either let the past dictate how you believe, or you can choose to kind of see a whole different future than the one than you have right now.
And one thing I've learned that's so interesting is that like as you meet people in the world, you realize that maturity and age aren't exactly a linear sort of parallel sequence. Like
very different.
Some people mature very early in their lives, some people mature very late in their lives, and some people are forced to because they have to. Yep. And most of the time when we mature, it's because of something we didn't ask for.
But it's also maturity in different ways, because you can be mature when it comes to having common sense, but completely immature when it comes to relationships, and vice versa. There's so many different levels of maturity that it can't even be comparable to age. Because no matter what age you are, you might be incredibly mature in one aspect of your life and incredibly immature in another aspect.
Hell, I've seen 50-year-old, 60-year-old people yelling at a kid for doing something wrong, and it's just like, dude, this guy's a kid. And then I've seen kids talk to each other and love each other like their family, and they don't even know them, like these other kids. So
that's a good topic. What is family? Is family chosen?
I think family is they're so. What's the saying? The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Yeah, the family you choose is stronger than the family you were born into. Same thing. Like, this is the family that you were almost given. It's like literally the hand of cards that you were dealt with at the beginning of the game. Right. But as you play the game, you learn that you didn't have to deal with the same hand that you were always dealt with, and you've actually learned how to change or change your hand or change your circumstances, and choose same thing, the people that you want to be with.
Right.
Why are you gonna, great example, like when you're working under somebody else, why are you gonna work for someone that looks like they hate their lives and work towards being this person's, right hand man, and just falling under that same trap that this other person has is already in. Whereas you can be surrounded by yourself by people that love to be where they are and appreciate where they are, and they will teach you how to be appreciative of where you are. So.
And I feel like the bond between the family you choose is thicker only because the family you're born into, you're almost naturally expected to constantly have that unconditional love for them no matter what they do. Whereas the family you choose, your friends, other loved ones, you're not expected to have that unconditional love, but you form it anyway. So forming it from something not expected is so much greater than, already having that because it was expected of you.
I would say I agree and disagree.
Okay.
Because it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people have, in their minds, perfect childhoods. Some people don't, and they're like, the bond I have with others is so much stronger because I had a shitty growing up.
Yeah.
And I felt like that sometimes when I was growing up, and I felt like that sometimes and I felt like it was perfect at times. But I realized it's just like a balance. For me, there's certain things I can get out of my chosen family that I can't get out of like the one that was given to me. But I still love the one that was given to me personally.
100%.
I think everyone should strive to do both.
Yeah, because there's things you can gain from family, but there's really things you can't gain from family.
The thing is, when you say the term family is everything when it comes to defining yourself. Because I think we're starting to understand the power of genetics as a humanity. We're starting to understand the power of genetics, and we realize that, and this is something that I learned the other day that was very powerful for me, is that certain traumas in your family is passed down genetically, even if it didn't directly happen to you.
Yep.
So, like, if your great-grandfather was a very abusive alcoholic, that's still in your blood. And there's the farther out you get, I think the better it is, but there's still tendencies. You have these innate tendencies for certain things based on your family history. So I think, like, if you ever feel like you need to just disband your family, but most people don't disband their family. I think most people get abandoned first and then they disband their family. Or they feel abandoned first and then they disband their family. But I think it's best to do the best you can to understand where you come from and try to understand your family. And I understand that there's people out there who don't have any idea who their real family is, and like that's just a different experience of life. And I think there are strengths, like, even though it sounds terrible, like I think there are strengths to every perspective and every way of being, but there's also weaknesses. There's also things that you miss out on.
Yeah. And
I think that troubles us as people sometimes because we want to be able to experience everything, but we're on the path we're given, and we just gotta walk that. And, but we get so stressed out about walking everybody else's too, with this like fear of missing out.
Great example. Me growing up, I had a very, I wouldn't say abusive, but aggressive father. So he would always yell at my mom, and me taking that more personally than I probably should have.
Yeah.
I yelled at him, and it was just back and forth. Two hotheads, this grown man and this little kid, just yelling at each other back and forth. And it made me a very quick to the punch, very temperamental kid.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. I was fighting almost like how you said, like what my DNA had been inscribed to me.
Yeah. It's like an inner rage.
Yeah, it's
an inner fire.
It's like, but
I got it too. I feel you.
Me choosing to kind of change my oh my god, I always forget this word. But basically just change my preconceived thoughts,
notions.
Preconceived
you have to
and
change your
everything.
conscious filter.
Yeah.
To notice, like, you gotta set off this little like piece in your frontal cortex that's like a little red warning signal whenever like this anger sort of comes up. You're just like, you need to be like, okay, you're getting mad. Like, why are you getting mad?
Just be conscious.
Is this something that you should consciously be angry at? Yeah. Or is this just your internal rage coming up because you're stressed out and it's just a response?
Yeah.
Like, it's a reaction, not a response. It's like I try
you
to
didn't
be
think
more,
of it, so it can't be a response. It's
Right.
It's an immediate.
we want to work to be
reaction.
more responsive than we are reactive.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, no, 100%.
100%.
You Snapchatting over there?
Yeah, not even in it.
Adding butterflies to my face for the story.
Well, when it comes to like genetically passed on traits, I mean, I look back and I look at myself growing up with both of my parents and seeing the things that they would do, and looking back at the thoughts of just viewing them and thinking to myself like, that's stupid. Why would you do that? This is the result, and it continuously happens.
Right.
And like I see myself when I'm older, and the other side of it, and I don't carry all of those on, but sometimes I look back and I'll reflect on my day and I'll be like, for an hour I kind of did this habit that my dad has that's negative, or I did this habit that my mom has that's negative, and I shouldn't work on that. I should work on that instead of accepting that, because like our neural pathways are literally, we already have habits before we come out of our parents because of the people we're
We're
made by.
literally half of both of them.
Yeah.
So
We already work, like when we can't even talk, our daily like mind, how we go about things is similar to theirs when they were babies.
Super crazy. I literally look like both my parents like smashed together,
yeah.
and it's like right on.
Isn't it funny? As above, so below. Like how it all works
Oh my
together.
God.
Smashing, just smash, and then all of a sudden
50-50. I'm like an
you
even
look like a
50-50
smash,
split.
bro.
Yeah. Even like an even 50-50 split. Oh, jeez. Damn, our first injury on the show, and
There
this
you
happens
go.
episode 1.
Happens within the first
0
10
days,
minutes.
0 days without incident.
0 days.
Yeah, we should put a fucking sign on the board up there.
So like,
Just
when
0
it comes
days.
to your parents
Yeah.
and your emotional intelligence in each of you, I know you were kind of saying the anger, how you had to work on that side of emotional intelligence. But what about you guys? What characteristics did you take from your parents that were negative that you had for so many years that it was like stuck in your neural pathways that you had to change?
Easy. I still haven't even changed it yet. I'm still acknowledging that this is something I have to work on, but it's the being, I don't want to say overprotective, but over worrying. Like anyone I care about, and that might also be from, past trauma and, losing people and stuff, but anytime, a loved one or someone I care about, I know they're out and I hear an ambulance siren go by, I freak out. I literally will always check, be like, where's this person at? Like, are they okay? I do that all the time. And it's this constant over worrying that will drive you insane. Because you're not being conscious. You're just constantly scared and you're not living your life. So I think that's the biggest thing I took from them that I'm really, really trying to abandon. Not completely, because it's great to care about people. It's great to, want them to be safe, but obviously not to the point where it takes over your life.
The thing with worrying and anxiety is you're not living in the present. So you are choosing to let your mind roam all these possible future experiences that have yet to happen. And they're always negative, or at least 99% of the time negative. Because if you're worrying, it's because you fear the outcome.
Yeah.
And
you're giving energy
to
it.
it. And you're just giving energy, and you're fueling this thought, you're fueling this idea, and it's just back and forth of, you fuel this idea, it makes you feel worse, you feeling worse fuels this idea even further, and it's just this like endless cycle, this huge idiocy, self-fulfilling idiocy of, you feel like crap, so you make everything around you like, you see, that's how you choose to see everything around you, and then it makes you feel like more crap, and then it's just like I said, this just endless cycle that you have to learn how to put a pause to.
It's very easy to trip over our own feet, and
That's go ahead.
Oh no, I was just kind of making a comment. Go ahead.
That's why you see most people who have anxiety, they have depression, because you do anything for 21 to 30 days straight, depending on the personality type you are,
Changes
you
your
fall into that.
Yeah.
So the thing about I hate the word, I hate the term anxiety, because like we all have anxiety. Anxiety is the reason that we exist. Like we wouldn't have survived this long as human beings had we not had anxiety. Anxiety is built in as a survival mechanism. But it's just when that survival mechanism's always turned on, and it usually comes from some form of trauma that you face. So like
It's from
if
trauma,
you were a child and like you felt like you were constantly in fight mode or fear mode or defense mode, like your anxiety is going to be tied to that specific emotion. And so like whenever those sort of triggers come up, you're gonna get those things. But the world exists full of those things, and so like you have to really find a way to dig deep into that trauma and understand what happened so that you can consciously sort of pull yourself out of that cycle.
Well, define anxiety, because
Well,
there's obviously the dictionary definition, but like
It's
obviously
anticipation.
It's a sense of heightened awareness.
it means something different to everybody. You know what I mean, to a certain extent.
The general term,
And there's
from what I
probably a
know,
dictionary term for it, but
it is a negative association with anticipation, because what you were saying is we all have anxiety, right? The reason that's like a big, like, you see people saying that a lot, is like we all have anxiety, is because we all anticipate life. Anxiety is a negative part of anticipation. When we wake up, we understand how we feel. We're like, I'm tired, I'm not tired, I'm energized, and then we anticipate what we're about to do with our day, whether it's a lot or not. And how that manifests is either positive and we keep anticipating it and we get to it pretty frequently, or we don't. We meander around it. We do anything to we have like all these preparation steps. You notice people with anxiety have everyone has their thing in the morning, like a smoothie or a coffee and biscuit. But people with anxiety, I'm speaking from experience. I had it for a long time growing up, because I acquired it when my father was sick and I would have to come home, and I would be very anxious to come home because I was anticipating negatively what could happen. Like, what new experience am I going to visualize today? Because at that point in my life, I was seeing and understanding a lot of new things in like the adult world about how people communicate in a very nasty way, or like how pills can affect someone in a nasty way, things like that, of that realm. And I would freak out on the way home. I'd be shaking. Like, I'd be like so nervous because we had a nanny who took me home, and I had to realize that when I was in therapy. So like, I kind of believe what you're saying too, is that anxiety is formed. It's not like
But the thing is with anxiety, some people treat it like, oh, it's just a thing, like people have. But for some people, it can be crippling.
Mm-hmm.
It can literally be crippling to the point where you can't even breathe.
Yeah. I think a big thing with anxiety is you seem to be the only person doing bad when you have it. You seem to be the only person freaking out because you're so in your own head that you don't even realize that somebody else is going through the same thing. Everybody looks so happy compared to you that you think you're almost doing something wrong.
And that's why it's so important to work on and emphasize the idea of self-love. Mm-hmm. When it comes to my parents, like you were asking earlier, the one thing I didn't feel I gained from my parents in my early life was how to love oneself. Like, because I love both of my parents dearly, and I think they've done the best they could with their lives. Like, my mom had me when she was 20 years old. I mean, I know who I was when I was 20 years old. I'm like, I can't imagine. And it's just, she had to grow up so fast, but she was still a kid, and they're doing the best they could. But like, I think they had a lot of regrets and they made a lot of mistakes in their young life, and I think they still hold that against themselves sometimes. And I think they're both getting better at learning to love themselves. But it also made me realize, most recently in my life, just like how much self-love do you actually do, because people talk about working out is self-love or doing something like that, but I felt like for the longest time I did it to myself as some form of punishment. Like, I sort of enjoyed that pain of working out, but I called it, and I masked that with the word discipline. And I had to learn the difference between discipline and punishment for myself, because I was constantly punishing myself and calling it discipline, but didn't know the difference. And so being able to separate those is just one layer of the deeper layers I've gone into, just to learn how to love myself better. And it's not because I hate myself. It's just no one ever taught me what it meant to love myself. And that's a fundamental skill that people should have that would lower your depression. It lowers your anxiety. It helps you sort of give yourself some reason and give yourself some value, so you don't live life so comparatively to other people, but that you learn to enjoy this beautiful experience that you're a part of, and accepting yourself. So
I was just gonna say, in just going off of exactly how you said, like, I never learned how to do this almost basic human necessity. And we can get into the education system later, because that is a whole other conversation in itself.
I think we got a topic for that.
Oh geez, dude, in online school, don't even get me started. But so taking especially just growing up, especially right now, what people value and what people choose to teach their kids. I've seen some parents, they'll teach their kids to play an instrument to enjoy like the beauty of music. Right. And I've seen parents teach their kids to play instruments because they were musicians and you have to play this instrument. Like, you have to be musically talented. You are a child. Like, forcing this upon them.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing, but it's not so much the action, but it's the energy behind it. So wanting to raise your kid properly, I feel like regardless of your situation, it always just comes down to, like how you said, trying your best and knowing that everything you did was to help them. If that's how you can truly answer a lot of, you know, life's questions, like I did my best and I gave everything I had, regardless of, you know, if you're lying, you're gonna know yourself.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. You don't have to, that's not something you can lie to yourself to. But taking that and using it as a lesson to, if you don't like the outcome, try a little bit more. But it's always about just being content. And like I said, if you truly believe that you tried your hardest, you have to be content with your prize, because that is
With your outcome.
Yeah, with your outcome. It's the energy you put in is the energy that you got out.
Right.
That's something that messes a lot of people up. I feel like everyone's been in that situation where they do give their all, but they didn't learn that self-love to understand when they gave their all. Because people are raised, like, I think there's a certain amount you're supposed to push someone and emphasize something they're supposed to focus on when they're a child. Like, not to bring the school system up, but like, it's a quick example. Like, you have to do good at school. It's so important. It's so fucking important. That's like, you see that when you like visit people's houses growing up. You remember their parents yelling at them, like, but there's no logic presented to kids when they're young. And people don't do it because like they're kids, they won't understand it, and they're not going to understand anything at first. So you might as well present them reason with everything, because like
kids are very logical. Like,
but we don't treat them like
we don't treat them as they're logical creatures. We treat them as someone who's out of control. But like, they're out of control because they don't know the groundwork, because they haven't had the repetition of life to learn certain things, and they're constantly just asking these questions on how do I move forward. Like, it's like reading the manual of life. Like, they're just trying to read the manual the best they can while this is all coming upon them. And it's just like, the earlier you can do that for a child, and like, the better it can be. But like, you can't force that upon them. It's how they naturally have to grow into it, and you just kind of have to ride their wave. Like, that's sort of what parenting is. Parenting, not that I'm a parent, like, but I've been around parents. I have parents. Like, I dated a parent once. Like, so it's like riding this wave with this kid. And like, it's why when you become a parent, you become different, because you're not only just riding your wave anymore. You realize there's someone else on your surfboard, and you're just like, you got to keep them on your surfboard, because that's the whole point.
At that point, you know how to surf. They don't know.
Yeah, they don't know how to surf. So they're on your back, and you're just like, all right, this is how it's done. Until
they can do it themselves.
Right, but then the world has to teach them too. And I think that's what the importance of a very good community does, is that if everybody's sort of in the same frequency, and it's just like, hey, like, this is how I think, like, it doesn't have to all be the same. But if everybody's sort of on the same general wave, like, a community can raise a kid. And they say it takes a village to raise a kid, and it really does, because the parent has to live their life too. The parent has to live their life too, or else they get depressed and they get sad and they have resentment, and then they start to resent the child. And it's not the child's fault that they have to constantly take care of us, because they don't have a family or a community around them to take care of them. So like, you know, kudos to all the single parents out there, and kudos to all the people who chose to keep their child and do that. Not that I'm either way. Like, choose to keep it, do what you want with your body. I have nothing against abortion, but like, if you choose to keep a child and you do your best to take care of that child, like, I have the most respect for you. You know, and it's just like, because that is it is a sacrifice. Like, you can't say it's not. It is a sacrifice. Women sacrifice their body to have a child, and it generally, I think I read this somewhere. Quote me if I'm wrong, but like, having a child shortens a woman's lifespan, because it's a very traumatic event on the body, and it's just like, you know, it's a hard world, and it's just, and it's so weird. I've talked to a bunch of women, and they're sort of back and forth. It's like, even women that don't necessarily want to be mothers want the experience of childbirth. It's a very interesting sort of mindset that I've met with certain women. It's just, it's an interesting way of thinking. Like, it's something I'll never know. I can never birth a child. Like, I don't care what you do, Elon Musk. I'm not gonna push a baby out. Like,
soon.
Yeah, we have men that can make babies. Fuck.
We can
transfer the eggs.
Apparently, women are able to be self-reproductive now.
Yeah.
they can turn. Is it like?
It's called a sperm bank. They've been able to do
No,
it for
no,
a long time.
Like,
no. With their
it's
own,
almost like a clone.
Is it from their bone marrow?
I
or
think
something?
so. Something
Yeah.
that has
their own
like
DNA that they can.
But they can only make women, right?
Yeah, they
I
can
think
only make
they
women.
can only make clones.
So men, bye.
We give you the
It
X's,
was nice
baby.
to know ya.
Yeah, but at that point, like the human race could exist without us, and we wouldn't. You know, we're chilling.
They'd fall apart.
Yeah.
At first, it'd fall apart. At first,
I don't know about
it would then be rebuilt.
no, because they'd get tired of each other. They'd be like, "You're a bitch."
Yeah, you are in a male-dominated society.
Yeah.
So eventually, you would actually crush everything down and rebuild it how it would work for you guys. Like,
Look.
I don't think it would stay the same at all.
Okay, let's play this
This is
hypothetical.
completely random,
What if
but-
all of us dudes agreed, just for a week, we just let women take over the world? We just let them, and then we see what happens. And after the week, they got to give it back. How much you bet they won't give it back?
I feel like
You
we're at a
paperwork
pretty equal
beforehand.
kind of standing point, though. I mean, like, same thing, like, you know.
What I'm trying to say is women are just as guilty as men of everything. Like,
Yeah,
they do
Yeah,
we all do
100%.
fucked up
Everyone's-
shit.
Yeah.
Everyone is equally capable and responsible of making their own mistakes, being their own shitty
Right.
people. Like, it doesn't matter what gender you are.
Yeah.
Every what is the word? Every demographic has
Every human.
has its positives, negatives.
Yeah. Every
That's that.
every belief system has flaws.
I
So,
don't see that. The thing is, I don't view them as flaws or positives or negatives. I just think it's differences.
yeah.
So something like we might not like it. It's just something that they were raised upon, grew
Right.
up on,
Right.
and that's just basically just the way that the cookie crumbles in this situation. So hold up, let's make sure that this is
It turn off.
still going. Well, the screen just turned off because there's no activity.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is still going. There you go.
Still running. Look at that. Look at technology go. We're still live.
Still alive.
Yeah, we went off on a
When
I
it
think
comes,
beautiful tangent there.
I was gonna say when it comes to finding a home, though, the example you used about the surfboard,
Yeah.
about how like you have to you kind of have to ride the wave with your kid and let him or her stand on the board with you,
Mm.
because they'll still kind of be on the board with you, but emotionally you'll be above the water, and the board kind of like it creates this weird angle and it extends it. It's drowning the kid because he's filled with extracurricular activities that he didn't sign up for. You wanted to be a football player, but you got like your knee injured. He wants to be in band, but you're making him do football like 7 days a week. He's under the water. I think that's the problem with our community. We're like, parents don't mean to, but we drowned our kids of like, oh, this is what you need to be as a person, instead of like, times are changing. Let's let them be who they
Yeah,
want to be.
let them kind of figure it out because they're at the front lines of all this.
Well,
Except for economic wise.
And that
It's
issue,
just
I
like-
think, stems from us being warriors, though, because we didn't always choose what we wanted to do, and now our world's changing. When we were very primitive and animalistic creatures, men would they had to be warriors and they had to fight to get food.
We are still primitive and animalistic
We
creatures. It's just there was a few golden eggs that sort of popped out here and there and came up with some really good inventions that advanced us far beyond what our evolution was ever ready for. And I think we're slowly starting to understand, like we're starting to adapt to the way technology has been given to us. But like the thing about technology is technology is its own form of life. Like it's ever improving itself.
That's a whole other conversation too. Technology.
Yeah, like and just to reel that back, it's just like we can improve only so much, but it's like we improve because of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we'll never improve ourselves beyond technology because like I don't know, it's
But,
weird.
I don't know. Back to what you were saying though about kids, like we're at the point where it's like let them figure out what they want to do. I agree to a certain extent because when you're young, when you're a baby,
Mhm.
like you need parenting to an extent. I personally feel like I would want to raise my kid like to learn, honesty, having manners, being polite, like all
Right.
that stuff. Like I'd want to steer them in the right direction that way. Like I'm not telling them what to be, but I'm telling them in a sense, what I believe is right or wrong. They don't have to go through with it if they grow up and they don't agree with whatever I've kind of given them my views. if they don't agree, they have every right to decide whatever path they want to take. But I feel like growing up, they at least need some structure. So
Everybody needs structure growing up. Like,
you need that certain extent of telling them, this is what I think is right and wrong. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, once they're old enough and they're starting to decide what path they want to be on, they can do whatever they want.
It's all about creating a generation that is greater, if at least equal to the current generation. So what it is you're supposed to learn enough about life to then teach your kid at least a couple of tips and tricks, and you're basically, great video game reference, you're just a little bubble in the top right corner telling the player to do this. It's like, hey, this, it's like a little suggestion box.
Yeah.
Even more better of a reference, the video games that don't let you control your player, it's almost like forces you. It's like click, they have to do an action, so you can learn whatever this is. Click it again, they do something else. It's just conversation for almost like the first hour of the game before you even get into really start making your own choices and movements. I don't know if you guys have ever played a game like that, but
what games are like that?
Yeah.
That you've played?
Oh my god, I'm trying to think. It's a lot of just like kind of games in terms of, great example. Everybody's just played Call of Duty, I assume, before. Almost every Call of Duty campaign, you follow a story.
Right.
You can only move in that story's line.
Right.
You can't.
It's not an open world.
It's not an open world. So many games, until they become open world, it's you have to do this, you have to do this. Like,
it's a structured mission.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you get to make your own decisions, but like to an extent. They're like, we'll only let you make some little decisions.
Yeah.
But like you do ultimately
there's even
what
more games
you
where it's
say.
just the beginning of the game is mostly a tutorial. This is completely off tangent, but most of the games are like on a tutorial based right in the beginning. So it's almost it's teaching you how to play, but it's not letting you be like, hey, go do this.
Yeah.
Your character does it itself.
Well, thinking of Call of Duty real quick, you're just thinking about the limitations of that story structure. You're not in control. You're playing out somebody else's story.
Somebody else's story.
But it's weird because like you're telling someone else's story.
Yeah.
And just it's like you're in their perspective.
Yeah.
But it's just like who's really telling whose story? You know what I mean?
But it's telling you like you have to make these decisions.
Yeah.
And like to win the game.
Right.
But then same thing, like games like that, like where you're not actually ever playing. Telltale Games. Have you guys ever played any game from Telltale Games?
Nope.
I don't think so.
It's essentially a storytelling game company where you basically can only do.
I played Adventure Quest as a kid. It was kind of like that. It was like a 2D, and you like had like dialogue and shit.
Okay, yeah. So just very simple, like you have to do this to complete the game kind of games. Is how a lot of parents are now becoming the guides to like the players, the present people, like the kids and everything like that.
Right.
That's how they're becoming the guides versus letting the kid to basically essentially free roam, discover everything on himself by himself, and when he discovers something, it's like, hey, this is what this is, and kind of help along the way instead of telling them how to play.
But so perfect. Like to go off of that, then Minecraft. I was thrown into just a game.
Yeah.
I was not taught how to play. It was just do it.
Okay.
I had no idea what I was doing. Did I enjoy it? No.
Yeah.
At first, no, because I was like, I have no idea how to do this.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to do this game, where I'm going, what my goal and objective, like what my goals and objectives are. But as soon as you said, okay, we're gonna defeat the dragon, I at least have like a basic outline of what my goal is.
Okay.
But then obviously as I'm going through and picking up the game and learning things here and there, I can decide, oh, I don't want to defeat the dragon.
Yeah.
I want to go do this.
Yeah.
But I needed that, at least that initial outline of
exactly.
where I'm going.
No,
like
I
that
got
initial, I don't even know.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, regardless, every parent and child relationship has that, because at one point the child cannot do anything without the parent.
Exactly.
So at one point you are essentially following the parent around, learning how to play the game,
Right.
And then you can start playing the
It's
game.
monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly. But many parents
Yeah.
are more of like a you are my sidekick, so they are like if the kid is now able to make its own decisions. Hey, I want this. No, this is how we're gonna play the game. The parent gets to decide. The parent gets to decide. And then it leads to kids just not to be able to explore and express themselves.
And
Especially
then the parent leaves, and they don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah.
Because they are like, well, I've been my parent's sidekick this whole time.
yeah, I've
and
never
now
done
they're
anything.
gone.
I've just watched.
What am I supposed to do on my own?
One thing I've seen, just from my parents, sort of, and like what I've seen from other people's parents, like just relationships I've had meeting families and just like seeing parent-kid dynamics. It's like parents have to put expectations on their children. Like it's a part of parenting. Like you have to set some expectations for your children.
Do you
But-
have to though?
You do. You have to set some rules and boundaries and standards, and those boundaries require expectation of the child. And the child has to know that he's expected to do this or that.
I completely disagree.
No, but think about it this way though.
The way I see it.
Instead of oh my gosh, I completely lost it.
What I'm saying is that, like, if you tell your child, like, don't cuss at your teacher, you expect your child not to cuss at your teacher because you told them and given you've had a healthy explanation with them, like, why you can't cuss at your teacher because it makes them feel bad. You know, it makes everybody feel upset and...
Not even for the message though.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Not for the message of don't cuss at your teacher, because obviously they're gonna get older, do whatever. But it's teaching them that structure and self-discipline. Just that initial, I'm gonna tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Can you actually have structure, self-discipline, follow what I say because I know what's best.
And it's also
for
saying
them.
sometimes I know you want to cuss at your teacher because you get upset, but it's just for the best if you don't, and it's better on you if you don't. Because you don't need to say those things. You have a choice of your own words and your own feelings. Like, don't let your feelings control you. You know, be in control of your feelings. And so it's just like teaching a child emotional regulation is one of the most important things. Because if you teach a child good emotional regulation, like if they're cussing at their teachers and you know they're well emotionally regulated, you know something's actually wrong, rather than them just reacting to everything because they didn't learn any self-control.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
It's why parenting is fucking hard, and I don't expect any parent to be perfect. Because we're imperfect humans, man.
So if you teach your kid, you know, discipline, self-control, and all that stuff,
Right.
and they curse at their teacher, and you know, like, my kid wouldn't do this randomly, but you teach your kid, and you expect him to not yell at the teacher, but you also teach, like, raise him correctly, so if he does, you know that it's actually, like, an issue, like something else had to happen, it wasn't just the kid getting upset.
Yeah.
Why you having that expectation, you almost broke your expectation by teaching your kid to break your expectation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like, it's almost like, I think expectation isn't the wrong word. I think it's more hopes. You hope your kid does something.
You gotta sprinkle both of those in there, man.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was getting at too, is like, as the child grows and becomes an adult, you kind of have to let those expectations go and then give them hopes. You can just see, like,
I like the word faith instead of hope. Hope feels like you're dangling from the string.
Well,
I hope I don't fall.
Hope and faith are intertwined.
I think they are shooting for the same goal.
Do you have faith and hopelessness?
Right? I think they're shooting for the same goal. I think one is on a lot straighter path.
Yeah.
So when it comes to what I might have said it wrong. I think all kids do need structure when they're growing up, because you have to test that child with that structure and slowly let go of certain aspects of that structure. For example, this is, at least in a lot of countries.
This is also coming from people that never raised kids. I just want to throw a disclaimer.
That's kind of crazy.
So don't take parenting lessons.
We were kids once and we had parents.
But
I've met some parents before. They're great people.
It seems like when you're that sidekick, it's because you're not allowed to break those structures. Like, did everyone play soccer when they were 4 here?
Yeah.
Did you play soccer?
Baseball.
Yeah,
You
I
played baseball,
soccer.
right?
Yeah.
Does everyone play soccer here now, or baseball?
I'd love to.
Not really.
I'm a dancer.
Okay.
It's hard to find a team.
I did it because my dad likes soccer.
But
I
you see,
started
growing
dance
up-
at 3 years old, and I still dance now though.
Why did you start dance?
My parents wanted me
No,
to start
you
dance.
wanted to start dance.
No, my parents.
Do you
literally
love
Did your
said-
mama dance or did your dad dance?
Nope, they just wanted to put me in a dance class while I was active at 3 years old.
See, that's good, but you found love in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's
Who
perfect.
doesn't love dancing?
Like, It goes back to like the it's this NBA basketball player can't let his kid go and do his own thing because he can't stop wanting everyone to fulfill his dreams that he can't fulfill anymore. And I think it's a fine balance because like when the kid doesn't want to play soccer anymore and when he realizes he's 6, like if you push him to keep doing that, that's wrong. You should just be like, okay, we're gonna switch over to this gear. And if he's like, oh, I don't really like that gear, it's like, well, you have to do something. I mean, and then you explain to him like in that mannerism for a 6 or 7-year-old, like you have to experience things to understand what you like.
But I also think too, if you have parents that are like that, that are like like that feeling of like you need to fulfill my dreams because I didn't. I don't think any parent consciously does that.
It's
like,
a subconscious.
If you're consciously doing that, you're kind of you need help. But like subconsciously, you're doing that because like you have it's like this combination of this realization that you did make a sacrifice for this child and that this child's growing, and like you're looking at the child less of a gift of a human being that's trying to live their own life, but you see them as more of an investment, which they are an investment. But if you see a child as an investment and you treat a child like you treat your money, like you're not gonna love it because like no one really loves money. Like no one would love money if we didn't need it. Like, but you know, even if you don't need like even if it's not your kid, like I still love kids. Like you know, if I see someone else's kid, I'm like, hey man, like I love that kid. I'll die for that kid. I'll protect that kid. Like, because like they're just children. But it's just like you don't feel that way about money. Like money has this like gross thing to it. Like children are beautiful things because they ask these questions and they do all things in the world. Yeah, they have wonder. Money has no wonder. Money's just an exchange so people can get a glimpse of wonder.
What it feels like.
Yeah, for a moment.
Money brings us lows too, because like we experience a huge high when we receive a paycheck, but it doesn't fulfill us throughout the day. Like
a lot of people. I was talking to my brother about this the other day. He was his car was really shitty, so he was gonna get like a better job, and then use that better job to pay for the car, and then use that car to get to his job. And I was talking to him, and I was like, "You see what you're doing here, right?" I was like, "You're literally just cycling through this like cycle of working, like losing your time to somebody else, so you can pay for something to take you to this thing that's making you lose your time. Like you are driving your own, like essentially like putting your own foot in the grave." And he was like, "Oh yeah," and he literally looks at me. He's like, "Yeah, but isn't that how it's supposed to be?" And I literally just like smacked myself in the face, and I just couldn't believe that like this is essentially how somebody raised in today's society feels. This is what the norm is. Work your ass off and hope and essentially
and hope to make it by.
And hope to make it by, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, you live that everyday average life of some family in the suburbs and either.
And you know why people feel like that is because when you work and you slug away, like you get to the point where you realize society has just fed you a bunch of bullshit, but you're so deeply engraved into the system of society that you've just like you're so into that cycle of how society functions that you realize like all these foundations you built will have to be broken down and eradicated and eroded and rebuilt upon if you are to change your life in another direction. And it's easier to stay where you are because like it's a real battle upstream to just dissolve your life and start over. Like that's a deep rabbit hole. It's a very deep rabbit hole. But if you can come out the other side, you actually like get to experience life in a much richer and fuller experience that you can love, and you can love every moment of, and it's not going to feel repetitive. But you know, we all have to get through that because the entire human organism are all built on societies. Societies are ran because we need to function, and there's just a lot of us. It's like we had tribes, and tribes with their own little small societies and communities and families, but once all those got big enough to connect, you have to have this standard way of being in order for it to run effectively for an economic model. Like, I don't know, and because people want to control large swaths, and it's really interesting how it goes down because I think people still get tribal. I think people still
animalistic, yeah.
Yeah, like we still tribal. Us four, we're a tribe of sorts. And so it's just like, you know, we're a small band of gatherers.
We're very animalistic and primitive.
I mean, definitely not be winning.
I went to a drum circle that wasn't really like promoted or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that is the most animalistic thing I've ever felt in my life. Way
Drum
more
circles are dope.
animalistic than like any like athletic thing I've done. Like I've never seen people so comfortable to just scream like hyenas and like rip their fucking clothes off in front of people and jump over fires. It was like a totally other world.
Feeling free, dude.
Yeah, it was like completely like it was. No one was really speaking to each other.
Yeah.
They'd just be like losing their shit.
We built houses to feel safe, and now we gave up our freedom for security.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're thinking of like, think of the tribes in South Africa that have been there for a very, very long time, and like their ways of being, dancing around the fire, and when I went to South Africa, they're always dancing. Like that part is still in society, in the South Africans. It's like they're always dancing.
They never show that in any sort of like school education too.
And it's so different. It's so different. Like that was what I was talking to Diego about the other day. People dance for different reasons.
Yeah.
Some do it as celebration. Some do it as a workout. Some do it to release any emotional stress that they can't express in words. People do it for different reasons, but they're all doing the same thing, and it means something very special to you specifically.
I think they're doing it for the same reason, and isn't it to feel good is the ultimate?
Well, when I talked to South Africans, because I saw a lot of them dancing, so I asked them, I'm like, what is it about dancing? Like, why do you do dancing so much? Like, why do you? And they speak loudly. They always speak loudly, and they speak loudly and don't whisper and talk low because in their culture, like, if you're talking quiet, you're talking about somebody, and somebody thinks you're talking about them. So like, you got to make your presence known.
That's
and, like,
how I feel too.
And it adds into the dance. And the reason is that dancing is like, South Africa's a hard place to live, man. It's not wealthy. The government's corrupt, and there's a lot of poor people, and there's a lot of violence, and every day could be your last day if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, it just so happens it's that way, and I think that's ingrained there. And so like they literally live every day like it's their last day for the most part. Like, they don't work to live. They don't live to work. They work to live. And so like, you'll see chain grocery stores that are supposed to be up until 9, close at 5 because they all agreed that they wanted to go home. Like, that's just how it works. And it's just like, okay, like, and it's a system, it's a way of being, and there's a peacefulness to it. I've been different ever since I came back from South Africa, because I studied abroad there for 6 months, and I got to meet a lot of the people from South Africa and get to just experience them and realize, like, I can just be happier. Like, I can walk slower. I can do things at a pace that's my own, and I don't have to up my game for any particular person unless if I choose to do it because I find doing so is worth it. It's just like, to walk for yourself.
I think that's an amazing way to live.
Yeah. Growing up, I was always the fast walking kid and getting pissed off when people were super slow.
Dude, I'm so slow walking. Don't ever walk behind me.
Oh no, like, well, now I've slowed down so much, and really just coming from like same thing work experience. All my managers would always just be like, Diego, just slow the hell down. Like,
you walk slower than I do now.
Yeah, well, I'm because I'm having fun now. I'm sightseeing as I go, and it's just so much nicer way to live. Just slow down. Why the hell? And great example, I do something similar now, in a completely different form. But I'll check my phone the first thing I do, like when I wake up, because me being like a manager, me having people rely on me, I have to be up and I have to be readily available, and basically pour my cup out to other people without my cup being full. And it causes, it's stress, one, but it's the same thing. It's just now I just have to learn how to slow down and wake up and drink some water, shower, get myself prepared before I can even tackle whatever events just happened on my phone.
Yeah, I honestly can kind of relate to that, because I'm a bit of a speed walker, or at least I used to be when I was little, and I used to have problems with pacing. Like, pacing heavily. And my dad, when he was in the grocery store, would just speed by everyone. He would literally like dart and leave my mom and me, and he'd be like, I already have everything, we gotta go. Yeah. And I was like dude, I hate when people fucking act like this. Like,
just-
we would have gotten home faster if we would have just strolled through the grocery store and like
gotten
picked
home,
it up
yeah.
calmly. We would probably would have remembered where everything is in the grocery store that we always come to.
Yeah.
So it's funny, and I struggle with that somewhat currently, like creation wise when I'm writing for school, because the teachers will be, and like that's what I don't like about the American school system, because the teachers will be like, make sure you're working on this in increments each day, and teachers don't even realize it, but they're kind of giving, at least in my writing intensive courses, sometimes they're giving like their like build up process to writing, or like their process of how they finish something, but it's just like I and we do need structure, but the way we say things, even I do it wrong sometimes. Like, they should be, I think people should explain it and then like give ultimatums, you know? It should always be like that, because when you start raising your kid after that, once he's like 10, 11, 12, you build less anger in people.
You're saying there should be ultimatums?
Like, you can do this, but you can also do this. It should always be like that. Unless it's like,
that's not an ultimatum.
you're right, that's not an ultimatum.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second.
There should be options.
That's just options. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so.
Because like that's what also brings on anxiety, and that's why like they say, oh, the American school system's the worst.
Yeah.
Like Florida actually has the worst from what I remember.
Well, just looking at how the American, I mean, I guess we might as well just talk about the school system.
You brought it up, we got
But right now the American school system was designed so when kids were going to school, in the nicest way possible, there was nothing. You went home to your parents and they both had respected jobs, or your mom was most of the time your mom was a stay-at-home mom, your dad had a job.
What are you talking, like the 50s or some shit?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When sorry, that was really low voice. No, but yeah, so just like the traditional how they want school to operate, because when kids essentially, you didn't do anything until college. You worked or you stayed by your parents up until you went to college if you could afford it. If not, you just went straight into the work industry. And the thing is, now there's too much to do, or not too much to do, but there's so much to do.
Right.
So many different options. Like, there's kids doing YouTube channels. They're millionaires.
Yeah.
Why should that kid have to go to school to learn the basic stuff in education, or like to learn whatever how society deems they should
Because
run?
I said this the other day. It's because of self-discipline and because of literally finding who you are. It's because when you're told you have to be in these number of classes, you have to be in 6 hours of school, then you have to go and do practice.
Well, that's what I was getting at.
When you're told you have to do this, it teaches them self-discipline.
Yeah.
It teaches them, am I willing to, risk getting a free period if it means having suspension? You know what I mean? Like, they're taught this learning right and wrong. They're taught discipline. They're taught, when you're hanging around.
I don't think it's discipline, because discipline is going home and doing your homework.
No, discipline is making yourself go into a classroom, sit there, not say a word, and listen to someone talk to you about something you might not even care about. That is discipline. That is telling yourself, I'm doing this because I think this is good for my future. I'm doing this even though it's not desirable in this moment, because I know that I should.
Well, the way our school
school
systems are built it's funded by an economical society, and so it's built for like a one-size-fits-all method. It's like, hey, who can get through this process so that we can see who's capable of doing the things we need them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's what the institutionalized school system's for. And hopefully, and because there's caring teachers, because there's caring administrators and caring parents and caring people that want children to have different types of learning, it's why we've introduced science. We have math. We have history. We have all these different things. And like, when you're growing up through K through 12 and you're getting through that program, like, it's a pretty low level of explanation on each of the fields, because it has to be, because there's so many other options you can pursue once you get to college. And like, people know that, people that build the school systems know, they're like, we can't give them everything at once because we don't want to confuse them. We just want to give them a storyline, to follow, like, especially for history, like learning American history. Like, if you go through my 8th grade American history book, today, if you read that, oh my God, you'd be like, this is bullshit. Like, because all the stories of American history that are told through these different people that we know now today were like slave owners, or were like, you know, and I don't think that they were necessarily bad people, but they had such a different mindset and a way of being. Like, our country was built on these people, and we just have to change our mindset. Like, we have to realize, like, America is an evolving thing, and so, like, we have to all get on board to figure out, like, how are we going to function this. But it's hard when you have 350 million people, and the world has billions of people in different places, and it's why they put just like one person in charge, and it's why they love the queen.
But
the leaders have messed up genetics, a lot of them.
But the reason
Purebloods,
it changes is because back then, like right now, we know owning a slave, not morally right. Back then, that's what they thought was the best for them. Which obviously now, growing through it, we all know that's not good. But in their eyes, it was perfectly right. It made sense to them. It's what they were supposed to do, which is why growth is so important. But it's also kind of tying back to school. It's that group thinking, group thinking that's not only good but is actually very dangerous. It's bad because you don't have the opportunity to express yourself differently. Otherwise, you do get hated for it. But at the same time, it's good because you can realize like, this type of group that goes by these morals, I don't like that. This type of group of people that goes by these morals, I like that. Mm-hmm. And you kind of find who you are that way. But, yeah, slavery is not good.
My uncle kind of, when it comes to, like, the world, he kind of presented this. He's, like, 79, almost 80. He's like, I kind of was talking to him about that. Like, well, it wasn't right, but they still did it. And he was like, was it right, or was it wrong, or was it just what was happening during those times? Because we didn't have technology. We didn't care about each other as much because if we had less to survive. So like,
we had technology, we just didn't have electronics. We didn't have the internet.
We didn't have BMWs and 18-wheelers. So like we took advantage of people.
We moved slower by default.
If you had slaves, you had time to relax.
Yeah.
If you didn't have slaves, you didn't have time to relax.
Well, that's
realistically, like, they had more. Like, I think it was still wrong either way.
But it's a classic bandwagon.
The slavery.
Well, if everyone else is doing it, then it's probably fine. If everyone else is all gonna put solar on their roof, then y'all do it.
When the devil presents his benefits, other people follow.
Yeah. Look, the old English in the Dark Ages really fucked a lot of things up since the 1400s. Like, when the Dark Ages were around, whenever the Crusades were happening, like that fucked us up royally, and it's still just like in the system. And England was just was the epicenter, and it was plagued by that. But England at that time, through those Crusades, got to a lot of the world and collected a lot of information and a lot of interesting technology that they took over, and were basically able to dominate the world. And it happened. People were slaves everywhere, and what the English did to the slaves, because they still had that religious poisoning sort of mindset, and they just tortured people. Mm-hmm. But if you look at slavery going back, like, the term slave just meant someone who is indebted. There were people who abuse slaves, but if you think back to like the ancient Greek and the Romans, people had slaves because someone was indebted to someone, and a lot of the time it was a deal to where if you worked it off, you were free. Like, okay, you're no longer in slavery. Like, you're no longer indebted to me. You've paid your debts. Like,
you see nannies like in South Africa and places like that, like rich parts of it where they're like white people,
right?
And they were like they loved it. Some of them. I'm not saying this is right. I personally think it's wrong, but you see like when people are thrown into a world where it's like, oh, this is my reality due to the person that I am and society's built me up to be. This is like a top of a hierarchy for the type of person I am right now, so I love it. I still think slavery is wrong. It was wrong then, but it's crazy to see how we view it then to now. Because even people who were dealing with it, the people at the highest points of it were like, oh, I get good money, my family eats better than everyone in the neighborhood. It's like, I think life is good. I think, because like, but then that goes on a whole nother thing of like where we're always kind of up and down as people, and like how you were talking about like a somber state is like what we have to be comfortable with to like get to that higher level that we want to as people.
Well, I'm saying everybody is normally in a somber state. I think like, I don't know if somber is a good word, but it's just like my normal state of being at any given point is just like riding the line. You know, it's like it's not too excited, it's not too low. I'm just sort of just like riding the line, and it's just like when you just look at me when I'm just like not thinking about anything, it's just like kind of how I am. But some people are just like always just a little bit bouncy. Some people are always just a little bit sluggish. Like we're all kind of different in that regard. It's just like you have to find your baseline for sure. But a lot of people don't ever get to find their baseline because they've been jacked up since they were kids on everything.
Well, like I'm an example of that.
Yeah.
Even sometimes it's like the mindset you gain from being jacked up on like medication is very interesting, and it's interesting to watch how much I've calmed down since I was 19 years old, to see like myself calm down and find my mediums. And like I think I will always, and like all people will always be finding new mediums as we change to like your happy medium.
Yeah.
But it was weird because all you know is take this to do this. So like when you take this to do this, you look at everything in life like that. So you're like, sports, Gatorade, like you have all these attachments within the things you love that really bring them down.
Yeah.
Even with school, sometimes like
balls drop.
When I'm forced to be creative, I have to use caffeine.
Yeah.
Because it's a timeline. But it's like when I'm not, I don't use it. It's different. When I write for fun, I don't use anything usually.
Yeah.
It's different how like it works for me.
Caffeine, nicotine. See, I think both of those are like neurotropics. Like they make your brain
Zoom.
work differently. Like they put you at a different frequency a little bit, but that frequency can be very addictive if you want to stay there, unless realizing that like the highs are meant to be highs because they have to go back down.
Yeah.
And like you can't just if you're constantly high, you're not actually high. You're just sort of plateauing at this new state of being that gets depressing because you're like it no longer feels. You're basically creating a lie for yourself, and I think that's really how an addiction starts, and how it kind of follows is like you're just on this new plane of being, and if you're on it long enough, you just forgot what it was like to not be that way, and like that's when people have, and for some of these things that you take, you have chemical withdrawals to where your body physically can't do it. And you're like, that's another thing, and you got to go to the hospital. That's when people have to go to rehab. It's
that happened to a kid I grew up with. He smoked so much weed that his body got allergic to it, and he didn't smoke for months.
No way.
I swear to God, he smoked on a boat, and he started puking and becoming like in and out of consciousness, just like sick.
His body like associated like.
Started smoking when he was 10. Like you ever met a lacrosse player who's just so burnt out, like you're like, oh, like that was like, dude, lax, and he's like really high. Like this kid was bad.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, no, I actually knew a kid growing up.
He was allergic to like any herb after that. He couldn't even smoke.
I used to skateboard with this one kid, and like, how do I explain it? He wasn't every way, shape, and form normal. There's just something like about him that exact same kind of like mood, just never cared. But it was like almost like it was like weird. It's
like unbelievable.
Yeah, like unbelievable. Like how are you almost like there? And everybody always just joked and was just like, yeah, dude, the kid's perma-fried. The man's just so gone. He's just so lost, and that's just how they described it. And now I see him, and from what last couple times I've interacted or like seen his profile and everything, he's super different. Wears dress shirts all the time, cut his hair, doesn't have shaggy hair anymore.
He pulled himself up by his bootstraps and just
super
did
formal,
something
and it's super crazy to see.
Yeah. He was a skater boy. He said, "See you later, boy."
She was a skater boy.
What?
Oh,
Whoa.
She can be these days.
It's 2022. Oh, 21.
Do whatever you
Jeez.
want now.
Oh
I don't even know what year it is
Be
anymore.
yourself.
Bro, it's already March again.
What
I
you
know,
call it?
Who
dude.
remembers last March? Last March
I
is
do.
when we started quarantining.
I know, dude. Oh.
We should get a cake. Celebrate. You know?
Corona's 1 year.
You know, we can. I don't know. We can talk about quarantine. Well, we can put a whole fucking
I fucking hate quarantine.
podcast together on quarantine. We can put a whole episode together on just
I
quarantine.
don't even think
and
it'd be one
what-
episode.
Oh, you saying
COVID was, or-
quarantine?
So much energy with
Oh, I heard
It was
corn
cool
twice.
for
and
like
I was
8
like, I'm
months,
completely
and then it
ready
was
to
just
rank
not
on
cool at
corn.
all.
Yeah.
I loved quarantine at first, but then it was just like, all right, it gave me this great time to get my shit together and form into a better person, and it's like, and the world needs to open up.
Look,
and that person needs to flower.
Well, Texas
The Rona
Texas
19.
is open.
That's a good
No
point.
more masks.
Florida's
Rona-
next.
The Rona 19, as bad as it's been, or as bad as I'm not gonna into that, as bad as it is, and how much it sucks for people. It's just like, it's I think it's going to change. It has changed humanity a little bit for the better, because it made us stop. It made us stop and be like, oh shit,
I actually have
this is what
nothing
I've
to
been
do.
doing this whole time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But people like moms or dads, parents, whoever, who are like working triple shifts and they're doing all this stuff, like they're never home. They're constantly work. They have a schedule, wake up, eat, work, eat, go to sleep. But now with COVID and quarantine, they like have to sit at home and be by themselves and actually
With each
think,
other, because they never spent time with one another because they were always working.
and actually think, because a lot of people try to distract themselves with activities so they don't have to think. But now it literally forced everyone to have to sit down and actually have thoughts and interact with each other, and I think that was terrifying for some people.
Yeah.
Because they've gone so long without it.
Well, and I think also because this hasn't happened before, it's like the people that did get in those relationships or did get married and like do cohabitate, they got into that place in the name of the societal structure that they were in, and like they're just like, we're supposed to get married, we're supposed to find love, and like they do love that person, or they did based on their ideas of how society's supposed to function. But when society sort of changes and shifts, and now you're in this new paradigm with this person, you know, I think it's beautiful when people that were together got into quarantine, they stayed together in quarantine, they learned more about each other, they fell more in love as people, and like that's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing, but I think a lot of people found that they just had really fundamental differences. They figured out, I would actually be happier with this kind of life, you would be happier with this kind of life, and we should go our separate ways because that's what's best for us. Normally it doesn't come out in that positive adult conversation. It comes out in tears and fights and people screaming and tweeting about each other and
that was a big thing during
getting
quarantine.
insane and stealing toilet paper and all that stuff. And it's
I
wild.
remember the first day I walked in, because I had moved home right like a week before they actually like started really talking about it on the news for reasons other than Corona.
Right.
And it was just like, I walked in the grocery store and I'm like, this is some bullshit. Like, what the fuck is coronavirus? I don't care. Like, this is
It smells like
not,
shit.
This is not a real thing.
Like, I was like, thinking back to when it first started, it was like, I was more confused than anything. It was just like, okay, and what happened to me, so we should tell about where were you when Corona started, you know what I mean? Let's do that story. I'll tell mine real quick. Hold on. Actually, Annalise, you seem excited. You go first.
Well, just because Corona was like my very first step of defying my parents and starting my new life. Only because when Corona happened, my parents were very freaked out at first. So they were like, you need to come home immediately. And I was like, I don't want to get on a plane. I don't want to go to an airport. I have to go through 2 airports. If I drive, I have to stop at 100 gas stations. I don't think this is safe. So I went directly against what they told me to do for the very first time, I think. And I decided to stay in Florida.
How did that feel for you?
I was terrified. I had no idea. I was like, I don't know if this is the right decision, the wrong decision, but there's no going back now. Like,
how do you feel about that choice now?
Amazing. Because literally because of that moment and it turning out the way it did, me learning from it, learning the type of people they are and the type of person I am, when I decided not to go home for COVID and everything, that's when I started my life. That's when I started making my own decisions. We decided to come to Colorado directly against my parents, but this time it was still scary, but I felt so much more comfortable doing it because I took that first step.
Do you feel that they respect you as more of an adult now? Or do you not talk to them?
Well, I think my mom does because I noticed she starts talking to me more like a friend now rather than, you have to, Annalise, like, what are you doing? Because there were points where she would literally call me and be like, what are you doing? Like, you're making
She's like
mistakes.
the guiding mother instead of commanding mother.
Yeah, but now she talks to me like a friend. She knows, she acknowledges that I'm going to make my own decisions either way.
She answers the phone like, sup, bitch?
Literally, like, she can actually talk to me like a friend. Now, of course, she still will act like a parent occasionally and want to help me with things, but she treats me like someone she respects. Whereas my dad, I think this was his worst nightmare. Was me turning into this person.
That's probably terrifying for a father.
Well, yeah, 100%.
Honestly.
And so He still loves me. I had to call him the other day because I was having a problem with school, and I was like, he's probably the only one who can really help me with this.
Yeah.
So I called him the other day, and he still was willing to hear me out, listen to me, and he's gonna help me. Because even though he won't really talk to me, and he's disappointed and upset, he still loves me, and I think that little glimpse of, you know, faith, I think, is gonna overtake everything.
I think a lot of the reason he's upset is because, like, it was sort of abrupt.
Yeah.
And all of this happening. And I think what he's trying to deal with inside is reasoning within himself. Is like, I know... Because, are you his only daughter?
Yes.
Are you his only child?
No.
Okay.
I have an older brother.
Okay, well, boys are different.
Yeah.
But, like, having his only daughter get up and be gone so abruptly, and, like, it sort of... I think it just kind of shattered his expectations of how he wanted to see you off.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it hurt him.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it hurt. And he's still trying to reason with that hurt.
I think
because,
he blames himself.
Yeah.
It's his biggest thing. He's like, I thought I raised her to be on this specific path. So when it took 21 years for me to realize I don't want to be on that path, he was just like mind blown. It was like, you were on such a good path. You were doing everything I wanted you to do. Where did I go wrong that led you to this point? Because he sees this as an absolute mistake. So he's like, what did I do wrong in my parenting that I believed you were on this right path, and now you ended up exactly where I didn't want you?
Right.
You left the part of the game where you're told what to do by the guide, and you stepped into the free roam world, and you're like, wait, I didn't have to do anything that dude just told me. None of that is even relevant.
Right.
And then you started going and having fun, which is what it's all about.
Right. And it all really depends on the level of, and I'm not saying you disrespect your parents, but it really does just depend on the level of respect you have for your parents' advice. I mean, if you've gone your whole life and you get to a point where you're like, I really can't take my parents this seriously because of one thing or another, and it's just like, because of, like, you're like, okay, I got to this point, like, even at 18, you're like, I think I'm an adult. Like, you're not, but, like, you think you are. And, like, sometimes at 26 years old, sometimes at 26 years old, I'm like, I think I'm an adult, and then I realize I'm like, I still have some childish tendencies, like, and there's people that are 40 that do that, and it's just like, there's not really anything as a grown-up, but it's just like, you get to a point where you have a growth spurt in your sort of mindset, and you're like, I can make decisions for myself. But
to wrap it back to what Diego said earlier, why would you respect working for a boss who doesn't have his shit together, who looks like he hates his life? That's not the type of person you want to work for. Same thing with your parents. Why would you go on the specific path that they set for you, when, you know, you look at their lives and it's nothing like what you want the rest of your life to look like?
No, 100% agreed. I guess we'll wrap it back to what we did during quarantine. But I'm super glad you found your freedom. I think that's, you know, beautiful.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome. So what were we doing during quarantine? There
were 6 of us.
I had a job. I was working at Sprint.
Oh, God.
Worst job ever. Was making my face, like, look destroyed. Like, I had acne everywhere.
6 of us living in that house.
6 people living in one. It was 4-person. Well, yeah, me and 3 other dudes, and then you moved in because of me, and then
Bella,
and then
Julian.
yeah, and then our buddy's girlfriend moved in at the same time. I quit that job. Then COVID hit. Quarantine happened at like the perfect time. I started working as a
at
server.
Delta.
Yeah, I started working as a waiter. Quarantine hit. Lost my job. Got paid that unemployment. Woo!
Gang, sir. Gang.
I apologize to people that did not receive it.
Can I say gang?
No.
Yeah. What do you mean, gang?
Trap gang?
And same thing, I was just discovering myself for a very, very long time. It's where I've made
You're done?
No.
You're done self-discovering?
No. I mean, a little bit. I found a little fragment. I would
found some fractals, bro?
Yeah, I would highly, definitely say. I found a big piece of myself. And
it was me. Oh my
My
god.
dick.
If only.
It was stuck in the other hole for so many years. I finally pulled it out.
Yo, bro, that was disgusting.
My penis was a belly button until I was 14.
Sometimes I just wake up and it's in my asshole. I'm like,
fuck. Definitely cutting this.
Back back to COVID. There you go.
Nah, keep it. It's golden.
Yeah, no, you're right. But, geez, no, yeah. So then that was when I was making a lot of life-changing decisions. How I wanted to handle my money. How I wanted to handle my dog. God bless Diesel.
The money. How
Yeah,
there?
how to handle my relationship. We did Georgia right before.
We did. We
I
started.
quit my
dating
job.
before.
We took a trip to Georgia, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And oh my God, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah.
2021. But yeah, just basically finding myself, making some major life-changing decisions, like moving out to Colorado with nothing but I want to say some faith, really, and that's basically it. Here we are. Started making music.
Oh yeah, you start. We know you
Started
making-
skydiving.
Oh my gosh.
Started. Oh my God, what else did I was in? Started doing photography.
And forex trading.
Yeah, I started trading.
Learning
Learning
forex.
how to trade.
You went to Alaska with your uncle to hunt wolverines.
Dude, I completely forgot about that one. No, I'm just kidding.
Cap.
Yeah. No, but yeah, just discovering, just basically branching out as much as possible.
Mhm.
I saw this one thing. It was like better to be a jack of all trades and a master of one, and kind of resonated really well with me because that's how I always like chose.
But
to
you
go
gotta
about.
admit, some masters of ones.
Oh, they're
when you
crazy.
see a master of one, you're
Oh.
like, ooh boy,
And that it makes you want.
that's tight,
Yeah.
bro.
100%. But yeah,
That's
no,
tight.
just discovering a bunch of different things about myself. Like I said, started skydiving, doing photography, learned how to express myself more. Started making music.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
It's weird how you have to
started
dissolve your boundaries to create them.
Yeah,
Like
100%. You gotta change your standards to be able to set new standards. You can't set new standards and keep your same
Yeah.
ones.
it's fluid, baby.
Yeah,
it's
all
fluid. Fluidity.
What about you, Nick?
What were you doing during quarantine?
Well, go back to January 2019, kind of leading up to quarantine.
A year before?
Wait, what? You mean 2020?
You mean January 2020?
Yeah,
This is about to be a long story.
no, because it was like the semester.
started
January,
2 years ago.
we came out last January, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
January 2020.
2020.
You said January
We're in
2019.
Okay,
2021.
so like December of 2019.
Okay,
I-
New Year's.
Like that, I got drunk for like 27 days straight with my family,
Whoa.
and I came off a semester where I was like with a girl for probably like over a year and a half,
Uh-huh.
and like I had broken up with her, but crazy shit happened at the clubs that I was going to because I was clubbing almost every other night. So my life for like years was crazy as fuck. I didn't realize it.
Wow,
Like from
man.
like 14 to 19, I was just out there. And I had lost myself more and
Yeah.
more as those years gone on, like gaining kind of like dark knowledge in a way. And I kind of just woke up one day. I had come back to Gainesville from getting drunk for like 30 days, like with my family, without other family. And I just realized how sad I was
Yeah.
and how much I hated like who I was becoming, and I had to realize why I was that way, and I like just traced it back and really realized a lot of hidden trauma over like 8 months, the first 8 months of Corona. And through that I found like my love of working out again, and like right now I'm kind of in a tough spot because like I'm fucked up, but like yeah, but it's like after that I'll get back to that like Muay Thai thing. And like the weird thing is like what I realized in the process of Corona when I was writing music too is like I'm really not a creative or that I feel like not even that pleasant to be around when I'm not active. And that's really what I realized during Corona is like I can be very reasonable with like the things that have happened to me in my trauma if I am active, even just like 100 push-ups in the morning or just like sit-ups but it's really cardio. And I kind of just got to that, and it helped my school aspect too because I hated living in Gainesville because of the way I looked at school, because I had transitioned my mindset from high school to college, which was like already a negative outlook on it, and I was really able to just get good grades and focus on myself and like practice self-loving habits, like breathing exercises and just like understanding that like talking about everything that's happened in my life is actually the most powerful thing that I learned that we all have, because if we can just get it off our chest, because society's ingrained into us, don't get it off your chest. But if we just get it off our chest and we really work to get it off our chest, we're good.
Yeah,
At least
hold
for the
that
next
shit
day.
in and swallow these pills.
Yeah,
You'll
the
be
next
fine.
day you're better. You might have to do it again, but it's a good way for me to at least chug along. I realized that, and working out.
So it's good to get therapy too, where you can find it.
I did it for 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah,
So what were you doing during quarantine?
That's exactly what I just said.
This was 8 months. Leading up to now. Just like that's where.
Oh, and then I guess
process.
Quarantine's still going on, and then like by the end of it, I finished and I graduated at Santa Fe.
Gotcha.
And I was talking to you for like 3-4 months after that about moving, and I'm here now. And it's been like a really cool process.
Right.
I've been like very busy with a lot of different things. Like at first I worked at a gym and I realized that like how much I hated customer service. So then I went door knocking, and now I'm just like focusing full time on school. And it's like I miss working out because I'm injured, but it's nice to be challenged. Like some days I hate it, but then I realize I'm having the wrong perspective. Like I'm being challenged way more than I ever have been academically. But that's what I've been working up to with like therapy and everything, of like understanding myself and understanding how to stay calm about school, because like I have a schedule but it's not bulletproof. And I think that's what I learned over quarantine too, is like because I was inside all the time, there's always these check boxes, right? But they're never going to be fully full. And I think if you can embrace that, at least a person like me, your anxiety will be okay. And I think a lot of people realize that during quarantine, you just vibe and chug along at their pace.
Well, and I think the people that haven't.
But guys, I hate to interrupt. I actually have to go do that right now. So have fun with the rest of the time.
All right, man.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Do you have anything to plug, Nicholas?
I love you all.
All right, that's a nice plug. Great. All right, I'll see you later, man.
Good night, Mickey P.
I guess lastly, I'll say how my quarantine went, and we can like wrap this thing up if we want. I was in AmeriCorps from the beginning of January. I got there January 7th. I got to AmeriCorps NCCC. I was stationed in Benton, Iowa. AmeriCorps is a great program. I think it gave me a lot of structure as a person. It taught me a lot of...
Peace Corps?
No. AmeriCorps is AmeriCorps NCCC. It's a civilian community service program, basically. There's a bunch of branches of AmeriCorps, but I was in NCCC, and I got to be a team leader, so I got to have a team of members, and they all came together. We got team leader training, and that training taught me a lot about effective communication skills. It taught me a lot about how people react to certain situations. Like it's a very good program to learn about yourself and to give you structure for like who you are as a person. But fast forward, so I'm a team leader. I get my team, and we're going on our first service project. We're going all the way to Long Island to work on a farm, to work on this organic farm. We're doing invasive species removal, and there was a bunch of autumn olive and a bunch of really multiflora rose, a bunch of fucking crazy plants. And we were out there with chainsaws, just chopping it all down and like having this team bonding. And like over the time, I had gotten to know this group of people and like these younger people that I was helping out. And like they were like a small family to me, and I miss them. I love those guys. But we were at our first project for like 2 weeks. Not even 2 weeks. Yeah, it was like a week and a half. And February 17th, something like that, we got a call, and it was the entire AmeriCorps across the nation on the phone. It's like, you guys are suspended. Like, we got to suspend the program. You guys got to go back home. We don't know when this is going to be over, yada, yada, yada. And so, basically, that sort of wrapped it up for me a little bit. I actually had a girlfriend in Iowa at the time, and I lived with her, which was an interesting experience because she had a kid, and so I got to be around this 4-year-old a lot, and I learned a lot about children in that way, because he was a very curious kid. He's very smart, very questionable, and it's just like, oh, like you actually have a lot of intelligence for a 4-year-old child, and the things that you're wondering are very intelligent. You have very smart questions, and so like I got to learn that. I know COVID was weird because that relationship ultimately didn't work out, and I think it's because we both sort of got thrown together because we weren't dating that long, and then we sort of got into this place of COVID. It's the same way COVID hit everybody. Like we got the COVID crazies a little bit, and like I was having to like self introspect myself, and a lot of things came out. She was introspecting herself, and a lot of things came out, and like it was a beautiful relationship in a lot of ways. And I think if anybody did quarantine with a significant other, like they'll sort of understand this in a way of like how it is to be that close to someone every single day when
don't roll your eyes.
When you haven't been dating even that long and like you're not married and you don't have any intentions of being married, like you don't know
especially
but
because we started dating in February and then COVID happened literally right then. So we like the second time around, but we had been used to spending that much time together from like the year ahead of time.
Together, not that much.
But we spent
not forced to be together.
But we spent every day together for a very long time.
But differently, because I was able to do my thing, and it was more like we were friends versus us being like.
We might have to survive.
Yeah, bound together. Not bound, because that sounds like I'm stuck with you. Yeah. More like, I'm trying to think of the word, but basically just be a lot closer to each other.
But after that, I ended up moving home for a little bit. Saw my mom down in Kentucky, which was nice, and then decided to move here to Colorado, and that's kind of how I got my start, is just kind of moving through that process. And like I'm glad I'm where I am. Like I don't. COVID made my life so much better, and I hope people don't get mad at that, but like it made my life better in a lot of ways, because it completely diverted my path from what I was taking, which was a good path.
I guess it just matters what you were.
Yeah.
What
I'd just be a different person had it not happened. But I'm glad the person it turned me out to be and the person I am now, sitting in front of you guys and sitting with you guys, just being able to have this podcast and talk and do our thing to get it out in the world. But I forgot where I was going, which is I'm just like, I'm happy that I'm here. I'm happy that I made it here with people.
You wrote that book too.
Yeah, I wrote my first poetry book, and I wrote that during quarantine. So the book's called Love Notes in the Universe. It's a story of poetry. It's about so I've been writing poetry since I was 15. I think I started expressing poetry and writing it down. But it was strange because over 10 years I've only written like 36 poems. I know people that have written hundreds of poems because they just write poems every day. But poetry for me, when I write a poem, it's not because I've wanted to sit down and write a poem. It's more so it's like I'm in a vulnerable state of mind, and I'm in a vulnerable place that I don't exactly understand, and I need to express that in a way. And for me, it comes out as poetry. Mm-hmm. It's me putting an expression of my mind on paper when there's a puzzle I'm trying to figure out, and I just kind of let the universe flow through me and let that flow out into the words, and then try to come back and understand it later.
Are you saying it was 36 poems in 10 years?
Right.
You just said.
Right.
I feel like.
But they weren't all like linear 10 years. Like it's just like some of them were at 15, some were around 18, some were around 20. It's like.
Well, I'm just talking about because I've seen you write poetry, almost every day.
I write poetry more now.
Okay.
Now that I sat down and I wrote those poems together, and some of the poems I had written at the time of writing it, but some of those poems I put together, and I tried to put them with my photography and to portray them in a way that just shows my experience. And I think it's an interesting book, and I'm probably biased because it's my story, and I think my story is kind of interesting. I think we all do. Thank you. But I tried my best. Like, I didn't want to come off as a pretentious person, because like that's not who I am. And I wanted to express my own story, but show my story in a way that could relate to everybody else. And I think for those who have read it, they've told me that they do relate to parts of it. There are certain poems that touch them in certain ways, and I'm happy that it does that. And I have to do some editing on it, but I mean, it's on Amazon. You can find it. Yeah, I guess we can post a link for it if you want to check it out. Sure.
Put it in the description.
But yeah, man, I love for you to read. I would love to get feedback on it. I would love to get Amazon reviews. I would love to get any sort of comments to just see like, hey, like, what was this idea for you? Like, this resonates with me. Like, I want to talk about that, and I think the podcast will be a good place for that. And if there are anybody that's listening, if you want to send in questions, if you want to make comments, if you want to tell us your story. Like, we'll read it, and we'll talk about it. It may not be immediately. If we find a place where your story fits, we'll talk about your story and we'll share. And like we'll do our best to make you feel at home, because that's our whole point. Like, that's the whole point of finding home. That's why we're here.
Agreed. Well, so I guess really the whole conversation of this was growing up.
We can talk more about growing up. Like,
well, that's what
specific for
yeah.
sure.
Well, I'm saying like we definitely that's kind of what we touched up on. For the like as like a, over like an umbrella. Of
Objectively, it was growing up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
growing up in today's times, overarching theme. Yeah. So, but with that same thing, we'll leave you guys.
Yeah.
To until another time. Hopefully, you guys heard this and found at least some similarities, hopefully some differences, because it's 4 different perspectives in the room.
Yeah.
Maybe learn something. Keep an open mind. You know?
If people want to find you anywhere, like social media or whatever,
yeah,
where would they go for you?
Oh, I'm just gonna drop that all.
We'll just drop all. We'll drop it all on the link, folks. We'll drop it all on the link.
Smash that like button.
Don't forget
comment, like, subscribe.
Yeah,
If you want more videos like this, feel free to subscribe.
Oh my
God.
Please turn your post notifications on. No.
All that jazz. Y'all know what the fuck stuff.
Yeah.
Subscribe to my channel. I'm posting more videos like this every 2 days.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad that y'all came to listen. For all of you that are listening, and I hope you join us next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to the very first episode of Finding Home.
And I hope you found somebody to call home.
Yeah.
That sucked. Just kidding.